Hello, friends. Welcome to the Your Story Within podcast. This is episode 15, Ask a Military Author. And today I'm so fortunate that I have my podcast partner, Melanie, online with me to keep me on track. We also have two fantastic military authors that I can't wait to introduce you to. And I know you're going to love them. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's get them on the screen with us. Hi, gentlemen.
Hello.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. Welcome to the show. So, Melanie, since you know Sebastian, why don't you go ahead and introduce him to our audience?
All right. So Sebastian Cimpoes is a former member of the 75th Ranger Regiment. Rangers lead the way. He worked as a contractor overseas for the government. He's an avid outdoorsman. He wrote a book, which is like a manual to help people understand the process of what it's like in the military and what the process is to join. The book, Call of the Warrior, is available at Amazon.com. Sebastian also started an outdoor company that teaches survival basics and the outdoor fundamentals. It's about veterans passing the torch of what they know to the next generation, instill confidence and leadership in our youth, and it can also help veterans reintegrate into society. And his website for that outdoor company is theoutdoorseeker.com. And Sebi is one of the most loyal people I know. He's a dear, dear friend of my husband's. And I have Sebastian to thank for getting my husband back home safe after their particular deployment. So, Sebastian, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for getting her husband back home safe. We definitely appreciate that. And thank you so much for being on the show. Now, I heard, Melanie, you call him Sebi. Is that right?
Yes, that's what we call him, Sebi.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, good to know. Well, again, welcome to the show, Sebastian. Great to have you on. All right. Dr. Michael Brown. That's the official, but I call him Doc Brown or Mike. I feel like Melanie just outdid me because I didn't have that, fancy intro ready. And I don't have like a slogan or a fancy call out, Army Ranger, whatever she said, I don't have that.
What's the Air Force slogan?
Used to be aim high. I don't know what it is.
Aim high. That's right.
There you go. There you go. Well, let me go ahead and read this long, beautiful, amazing introduction, and then I'll tell you my personal experience with Doc Brown, because he was a lifesaver on many occasions for me, and I'll get into that. So, Dr. Michael Brown actually goes by Doc Brown or Mike or Michael, depending on which circle you know him from. He has also authored a book. In fact, he's also authored several books. He is an accomplished public speaker. He has coached different sports at the Recreation League, middle school, junior varsity, high school, and adult levels. He earned his public administration and urban policy degree, international business from Old Dominion University in May 2011. He is teaching online social media, public relations, communication courses. I think there's others I'm probably missing. He does it all. Let me just tell you that. At Florida Institute of Technology, he is a naval civil servant working as a public affairs officer in Norfolk, Virginia. And he is a PR professional and has 40 plus years of military and civilian experience combined. Now that's the official. The unofficial is Mike and I used to work at Booz Allen together, and we were working on our dissertations at the same time. And there was a point during that, I'll just call it a challenge working on that, where I thought I was going to give up. I was running into issue after issue, trying to find a population that I could work with to complete my dissertation. And anyway, it was his motivational encouragement and uplifting and constant telling me I could do it. I don't know. That just kept me going. And then watching him, he ended up graduating first and getting it and didn't stop being that encourager. So, and to be honest, he continues to encourage me daily, whether it's through LinkedIn or at other social media channels or events, and I try to do the same. So anyway, that's my hoo-yah excitement. I don't know what the Air Force says, but for Doc Mike Brown. Thank you so much, Mike, for coming on the show. I know the guests are going to love hearing from you and Sebastian today. So,
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I'm blown away by that introduction. I'd like to meet that young man.
So Melanie and Doc Brown both know that I can talk and talk and talk. So we better just get this show started. So Melanie, why don't you kick us off with the first question?
Okay. Well, I have the same question for both of you, but Sebi, let's hear from you first. Why did you join the military and why did you choose the Army Rangers?
Yeah, so I joined the military for several reasons. One of them is I just wanted to see if I could fight. If I got put in a hard situation, would I come through? And then my family immigrated from Romania, and so my parents gave up a lot to come here and started from the bottom. And it was my way of honoring them coming over here and the sacrifices they made. And then the last reason was when I was in college, I was working to be an animator. And as I was on my computer, just goofing off, I remember watching videos of guys overseas, and I was just wondering why I was sitting here in safety while other guys were risking their lives. Yep. And then to be an Army Ranger, I kind of just fell into that. I wanted to be a Marine at first because they're really good at advertising. And I went to the recruiters. I ended up realizing that I didn't want to join the Marines. And then an Army recruiter pulled me in, and he showed me what an Army Ranger was. And I wanted to do that because all I wanted to do was jump out of planes, run around with a gun, and get in the fight.
Well, I mean, that's as good a reason as any, I guess. That's awesome. What about you, Doc Brown?
Well, so I'm an Air Force brat. My dad was a retired senior master sergeant, and it's a life I grew up with. So I always planned to, growing up primarily in New Jersey, I always planned to go in the Air Force. But I became a journalist when I was a senior in high school. I was working on the high school paper, and I really loved it. And so I said, what should I do? And I heard about the Defense Information School, which trains all military journalists, which is now at Fort Meade, Maryland. But then it was at Fort Benjamin Harrison in Indianapolis, which is now closed. And so I said, if I go and take the test for the Army, because the Guard Armory is right by my apartment, and I don't have to get up very early, they will send me to DINFOS, and I'll get into military journalism that way. But the Army, I'm not saying anything bad, Sebi, trust me. But the Army said, your scores are too high to be a public affairs officer. You need to be infantry. And anybody who knew me then or knows me now knows I'm not an infantry kind of person. Right about it, but I'm not crawling through the mud. So I got what was called a conditional release and went to the Air Force. And the Air Force sent me to the Defense Information School. And so that was 1976, and I've been doing some form of public affairs, public relations ever since because I love doing it. But the military gave me my in, and I stayed 24 years, finishing up at Air Force Public Affairs at the Pentagon in 2000.
That's awesome. I actually went to DINFOS, the Defense Information School, when it was at Fort Meade back in 2004. So, yeah, I didn't realize that it wasn't always there. That's interesting.
So you're a DINFOS train killer like I am. That's great.
I am. Yes.
All of my classes were in Indianapolis, and then I was on active duty when they moved to Fort Meade, and I was fortunate enough to be a guest speaker a couple of times at Fort Meade. So I kept that connection to it. So it got me ready. It trained me better than I think any college could train me.
That's cool. That's very cool. How many deployments did you each do?
I went on 5 deployments.
And then you went on more. Do they call them deployments like when you were a civilian contractor? Is that considered a deployment also, or does it have a different name as a civilian?
Yeah, we call them deployments as well, and that was 9 more trips.
Wow.
Oh, 9.
And in my career, I only went once. Fortunate or unfortunate, what happened for me is when Desert Shield and Desert Storm happened, I realized the deployments were going to get longer because then they were they were 90 days. And that was in the 90s. And so I volunteered and I went to Saudi for for Southern Watch. It was called Southern Watch. So I spent 90 days in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and then came back. And then a little while after I came back, they started 3 months, 6 months, 1 year deployments. And soon after, and then I got out in 2000. So I got ahead of the bow wave.
Yeah. Now, Doc Brown, you retired after 24 years, but Sebastian, you did not go till retirement. How long did you serve and why'd you get out?
I was only in the military for 4 years, and my number one reason why I got out is because I wanted to start a family. I realized how difficult it would be in the military, and people like you, Mel, I have the ultimate respect because you and Chris, long haul, 17 years, right? Chris has been in.
Yeah, we're a Dinfos marriage. We eloped after 2 months. We met at Dinfos. Yeah.
That's really awesome. And
congratulations. I hear congratulations are in order. Sebastian is newly engaged. We had the chance to meet his wonderful fiance about a month or so ago. And I'm very happy for you.
Thank you. I love Stephanie and I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, she's excellent.
Congratulations as well. Yes. Yes. Well, before you ask anything else, Melanie, I wanted to go back to Doc Brown said he didn't want to crawl in the mud and that kind of stuff. But I'll tell you, Chevy, I'm on your side. Not on purpose, though, because I'm an Army brat. My dad was Army. My grandfather was Army. Got a lot of Army in my family. But I married a Navy guy, so I don't know. We don't watch Army-Navy games or anything like that. It wasn't bad. But I actually did crawl through the mud, and I did the Army Ranger Malvesti. And I won't say I did it well, but I did it. So I was part of the Department of Defense Executive Leadership Development Program. And it was a program where civilians, so many are selected a year. I was fortunate that I was selected. I think they had 60 that year. And we train with the military, and we train with all branches of the military. It's one of the stepping stones to becoming a senior executive service. And they want you to go through that program so that you get an idea of what our military members go through. For instance, from a research perspective, if you want to add more weight, I want them to have this gear or this type of equipment. Well, how much does that weigh? Because they're already carrying, all this stuff. So I had to wear all the stuff and do a lot of the training. Well, Doc Brown's laughing because he knows I'm a desk jockey. I sit at a desk. I did some public affairs. I did my main role was strategic communications. So when they said I was going to have to jump out of a perfectly good building or rappel off of a very large building, I thought they were crazy. And then when they told me that I had to do the Army, the Malvesti course, I was like, you want me to climb up those log things? And then you want me to do what in the mud and under barbed wire and whatever. So anyway, I just wanted to share that I did crawl through that mud. Okay.
We have pictures to prove it also.
I do have pictures.
Well, let's switch over to the author side. Doc Brown, can you tell us how many books have you written and tell us a little bit about some of those books?
So I'm working on my 9th book right now that it's going to be about COVID and telework and trust and performance. Really excited about it. So the book that we're talking about, 3D Coaching, is my 8th book. I have chapters in 2 other books. So I guess I'm officially prolific now. But I write on a lot of things because I get bored easy. But I have the coaching book. I have this kind of research book because I'm a college professor. And then really the book that I'm most proud of, I've in a bittersweet way, we lost a daughter in 2016 to multiple sclerosis. So I wrote a book about that journey called Life and Loss, and just to capture how you go through that. So every time I finish one book, I get an idea and I'm off on another book. So those are the things, but they're not all in one area. So I'm hoping I'm covering a lot of different audiences.
That's incredible.
Yes. He's a very eclectic author, writes on a lot of different topics, as he said.
That's amazing.
Let's go ahead. Let me bring it up because I do want to show the book and let people know where they can get it, and also how to contact Doc Brown. So I'm going to try this screen sharing, Melanie. You know how I am. So hold on. Hopefully
I don't
get
have
it right.
that. I never get it right.
Here we go. All right. So, all right. So here's where you can find the book. It's called 3D Coaching. It's at Barnes and Noble.
That's Barnes and Noble, but it's Amazon, and a general internet search will find it for you.
Okay, awesome. And then I also want to bring up where people can find you. You have a, as I said, he does lots of different things. I think that's coming up. Let's see if it's sharing. Okay, I guess I didn't do it right. Let's try it again. All right. Oh, there it is. All right. So that's the Right Fit Communication. Can everybody still hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
good. So that's his organization. And
Janine, if I can just say, when I was before I came to Booz Allen, I had a back problem, and I started a consulting company because I didn't think I would have a job. And so that's the website. And I've just been lazy to shut it down, but it's a good place where all my books are. So thanks for sharing that.
Gotcha. All right, let me stop sharing the screen. Okay, there we go. I just wanted to make sure. And then before we show Sebi's stuff, let me put this on the screen in case people want to write this down. That's where you can find Doc Brown, the website I just showed, and then you'll be able to see his books there as well.
Excellent. All right, Sebastian. Now, I want to talk a little bit about your book that you wrote and why you wrote it. Can you tell us just a little bit about that?
Yeah, I was going through a really hard time in my life, and I wanted to focus on something external, and to help people out is the best way to do that. And so I came up with this project, and I just set 3 goals. I wanted to write a book, start a podcast, and just do 10 episodes, and then make a website where they all go together. And it was to help people who are thinking about joining the military from the beginning of getting in, what to think about, all the way to when you get out, and the realities, the good side and the bad side.
Yeah, I noticed that when I was reading through your book that you talked about some pretty serious issues, including domestic abuse, mental health, depression, and suicide. Now, why did you feel that it was important to share those particular topics to people that are considering joining the military?
One, because when you watch movies, play video games, you don't actually feel the effect of what happens out there. And in the military, you are more tribal, and you resort more to those primal instincts of survival. And doing so, it causes you to lack of like a long-term vision, because you think your life could end at any time. So you're going to live a more extreme life. And something like domestic abuse, depression, there are a lot higher swings than they are for like a normal civilian, where it's just safer and you can just go do your 9-to-5 job and just live for the weekend. Over there, when you don't think you're going to come back, you might make more rash decisions, like with your money, as well as with your relationships as well. And so I wanted to cover that because balance is a key in everything in life. And when you don't get to see that side, you join it, it could be a really big shock for you. And I wanted to talk about like things that I went through and give people examples of how to expect reality when they join in to better set them up for success.
Right. I really appreciate that. I appreciated that part of your book because, so often, like you said, for example, the Marines, their advertising was really good. It just seems like an adventure, and they don't talk about the aftermath. So I think that your book definitely has a special place in this world, and it's a very underserved knowledge base. You hear more about it when you're in the military and you're in that community and they talk about mental health. I still think it's like grossly underserved. But I really appreciate you kind of like spearheading that with people even considering coming in. Not like, hey, we're going to get you and then we'll talk about it later. It's like, hey, you need to know, we need to put everything on the table so you really know what you're getting into. So I really appreciate that.
Thanks.
Are they talking more about that, Mike, from the PAO side, since you're still working with the government? I know when I was with the command years ago, we were looking into all of that, from the sailor perspective, you know, the suicide, all the mental health, the PTSD. When I was leaving, they started talking about PTS growth. You know, how can you grow from those experiences? And but I was curious, since you're still in there.
Yeah. So the Navy, like the other services, is doing a really good job of doing annual surveys to ask people what's going on with them from a lot of different places, mental health, making sure there's no sexual harassment. We just had, of course, the stand down to, you know, kind of the human condition and how people are treated. But the main focus really is to let people know that there's not a problem asking for help. That if you think you're in trouble for any reason, if it's going poorly for any reason, if you're not being heard for any reason, there's no problem with reaching out and saying, I need help, I need to talk to somebody. And I'm encouraged that every time you go to a medical appointment, even me as a retiree, they ask you, are you depressed? Are you safe at home? You know, are you concerned about anything? And so they're doing a really good job of trying to talk to people. You know, certainly always the trouble is, and I get this in my coaching, you never know what person a person wants to talk to. And so friendships are so important. So, you know, like I think in what we're talking about here, we seem to be people who have someone we can reach out and talk to. And the military is doing a good job of trying to put people in touch with folks they can talk to. So they're doing a good job, I think.
Yeah, I know that they've been really working lately to try and dispel the stigma that comes with asking for help, especially in like the special operator communities. It's, you know, the team is first, yet if you ask for help, then they get that the feeling that like I'll never be looked at the same. If I ask for help, then I'm weak. And these type A men are not the type to really ask for help until their whole lives come crashing down around them. So I know that specifically my husband's community has really been working to basically say like, hey, the team is important and our mission is important, but our individuals are more important and our lives are more important. And, you know, those at risk for suicide are more important than, you know, just looking strong. So I appreciate the work that you're doing in that aspect as well.
Right.
Yeah, I think I appreciate those words from you, Melanie. And I think they really are working on trying to say just kind of what you said. Reaching out is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength. But actually, one of my books was about human communication and the different ways it can happen and how you get people talking. Because the first thing that has to happen is you have to talk to someone.
Absolutely.
Have you noticed any changes, Sebastian, since you put the book out?
For myself, you're saying, man?
Well, for yourself or for anyone, I know you had a passion for putting that book out and sharing that information. Have you received any feedback that people have embraced it and are moving forward or anything like that?
I have just gotten compliments about the book, but as far as promoting it, I haven't promoted much. I don't really like talking about myself or trying to sell things. And so just talking to buddies when they're struggling is where I've seen the most.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, and that's where your new company is. Oh, sorry, Janine.
No, that's
where your new.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you just tell us briefly? I know that we're here to talk about the books and the author part also, but you know, the whole point of having a platform like you have is to spread the word and let people in need know that it's available. So, can you tell us a little bit about your outdoor mission that you started?
Yeah, thanks. I'm really excited about it. It's going to be a network of veterans that goes to teach what they learned overseas and through their life to the next generation. And it is an outdoor survival courses. There are courses, but there are also guided trips. And a lot of the reason I wanted to do it was for me personally, like trying to reintegrate into society has taken me a long time. I'm still struggling with that. And this is a way of bridging that gap. And so I want to instill confidence, not only in the people that we're teaching, but also in the veterans that they can relate to people back home and they can talk about their struggles and help future generations grow stronger because of it.
Yeah, and to show that they still have something to offer, and that
Exactly.
actually they have like specialties that they can offer.
Yeah.
That's excellent. That's great.
Well, before we move on, I love that. And as you were talking, I'm like, oh, I have his website. I want to make sure I bring that up. I also want to make sure I don't forget to share your book and where people can find it and that stuff too. So let me share, because Melanie, she'll tell you I'll get off on my tangents and then all of a sudden I'll forget. So I don't want to do that. So let me get your stuff up, Sebastian.
Not Janine.
I know. Stop, Mike. Don't let all my secrets out.
Yeah, whenever Janine and I are on a podcast together, we can never like have a real strict script, because our script might be like this, and then all of a sudden we're like way over here.
So here's Sebastian's website, precombatcheck.com. And let me make sure I put that up so they can see that too. There we go. And then I will share also where you can find the book. Let me bring that up. So it's, did it show? Let's see. Oh, I guess
Sebastian, while she's bringing that up, I just had a question. So if people want to like book a guided tour with you, or book a class or whatever, they would just go to your website. What is it? theoutdoorseeker.com?
Yeah, correct. Just go there. There's a form you can fill out, different courses you can check out, and then just contact me and we can set anything up you want.
Cool.
So you can find his book on Amazon. Can you find it anywhere else, Sebastian?
Yes, ma'am. It's on Barnes & Noble as well, and Amazon.
Awesome. And then I'm going to share your Outdoor Seeker site too. I did check that out when you sent it, and I'm actually going to share it with my husband because I think it might be something good for him as well. So there is how you can access it. I gave you guys the address, but let me put it back up again. There we go.
Is it theoutdoorseeker.com or outdoorseeker.com?
Is theoutdoorseeker.com.
Oh, my apologies. Here, we'll fix that. Easy to fix.
There we go.
There we go.
Thank you
My
for showing me.
apologies. There we go. All right. Okay. Now I did my job. I didn't drop the ball. Okay. No, that's great. And I'll tell you, I think the whole mental health conversation is changing a bit. I'm sure my husband would be fine sharing this, but in the past he would not have been. He was in the military. He only did a very short time because he was medically retired from the Navy. He ended up having a condition called IgA nephropathy, which basically IgA is a type of condition, but the second part of it, nephropathy or whatever other organ, so in his case it's kidney, it basically killed the kidney. It can attack any large organ. And so his kidneys ended up failing is my point. He only did one deployment. I think they called it a UNITOS. And so he did the whole South American route, I guess it was. And but so he never went to battle. But because of the medical side and some of the things he went through being diagnosed and the different procedures and whatnot while he was still in the military and being as young as he was, he ended up with PTSD. They call it medical PTSD, and then major depressive disorder and things like that. Because from his perspective, for those military members who are medically retired, there's a lot of things that I didn't even realize they've experienced. So in the case of my husband, he's like, I was 23 years old thinking I was going to have this long career in the Navy, and then it got cut short and I didn't have a career anymore. I didn't have anything to look forward to. I didn't have all these things. And then he sees his peers, fast forward, and they're making rank and they're retiring and so he's at a totally different life. And for many, many years, as a tough guy, he's my hunter, fisherman, Spartan race guy, he didn't want to talk to anybody. now it cracks me up because we were just at church yesterday and I get out of my Bible study first and there he is talking to Melanie about all this stuff. And I'm like, okay.
I have that face though. Everybody talks to me about their personal stuff.
So I think things are changing. I am going to have him read your book though, Sebastian. I think seeing from your perspective as well will be good for him. So you'll get another reader in the Bennett household. And but anyway, I just wanted to say I did appreciate when I read the book that you had those items in there, because I think it's so important for the combat veterans, but also the veterans who don't get to experience that and have other issues. I think it's extremely important.
Absolutely. Now, without the process of publishing and the writing process, we would never have these books. So I would like to kind of switch gears and talk about the actual writing process. So Doc Brown, let's start with you. What did you find most difficult on your author journey? Writing your book, the cover design, formatting, editing, publishing, marketing, something else, or all of the above?
I would have to say all of the above. And I'm actually fortunate or unfortunate to have done the publisher route, big publisher route, the little publisher route, and the self-publishing route.
Okay.
And so I've experienced all of that. I think the biggest challenge is understanding all that goes into it if you're self-publishing, because when you're self-publishing, you are it. And so if the graphic's not right, it's your fault. If there's a word that's wrong, it's your fault. If you're having difficulty knowing that there are many books that are great books that have a typo or a misspelled word, if you can't live with that, then that's going to be a difficulty. And then when it's the other way, when the publisher's doing it, they have control. So I have a great publisher for my research books, but sometimes it really bothers me because I don't get to do any covers. And I think I'm a creative guy and I have some great ideas. And I'm like, why is that the cover? But it's a cover because that's what their covers are, because the books are in certain buckets, in certain genres, if you will. So that's good. But the good thing about having self-published is understanding all that goes into it and being better at solving problems, because that's what it's all about. Yes, you have to write, and yes, you have to get to certain word counts and all that, but it has to be a cohesive product that somebody's going to pick up and read. Mm-hmm. And if the first paragraph is a hard read, all the goodness that you put in there may not be good. So you need feedback, and that's the other thing you need to get. You need to find somebody, like for me, Janine, in some respects, can read it and say, that just doesn't make sense.
And for Janine, I'm that person.
Yes, Melanie's that person for me. She's like, you're too academic again.
Yeah, and the last thing I would say on that is I'm also fortunate because I've been a working journalist throughout my life. So everybody reads my stuff all the time. And if you can't take criticism and feedback when you're a working journalist, you don't last very long in that arena, because you could be sitting in a restaurant and somebody's reading your story and say, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. That is not what happened at that basketball game. So there's so much going on, but I enjoy that juggling act of trying to get it to the final stage of seeing it on Amazon or something.
Yeah. Sebastian, for you, which route did you go? Did you self-publish? And what was the hardest part for you?
I did self-publish through Amazon, and I thought the hardest part was getting what was in my mind out on paper. I had my two good friends, Denise and Brittany. They helped me edit it, and they gave me criticism, as well as my sisters helped me out a lot. And it was difficult because I just wanted to get done with it. It turned out to be about 7 months for me to get everything done. But when I was writing it out, I had these ideas in my head, and then I just went straight down, just kind of got everything on paper, and then wanted to refine it. But I realized that one refinement was enough. I just got the first draft out, and I was like, I'm done. I'm just going to publish this. I'm good. And my friend Brittany, she said it very nice. She was like, oh, that's really good for a first draft. I was like, no. So I realized so much was redundant, and I wasn't actually verbalizing what I was trying to communicate. And so it took me a long time, and draft after draft, I just got so sick of looking at my computer and reading the same thing over and over again. But at the end of the day, it was a lot of fun. And I like media arts and like drawing and stuff like that. And so everything else was pretty natural to me from like things I did prior to that. But it was just conveying the message I was trying to communicate that was the most difficult for me.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say I kind of well, I'm like Sebastian, and Mike knows this. I self-published, but getting the story out of your head was a big thing for me because it was so personal. And and then to Mike's point about criticism, well, I wasn't the journalist. I oversaw public affairs, at the end of my civil service career. But I was Stratcom, so I was able to, do a little bit. I did some different stuff with the intel community. We'll just leave it at that. And so I didn't have to worry about what they thought of my writing because I was sharing some information for a different purpose. When it came to
it wasn't reading material for enjoyment.
There you go.
They had to read.
But when I wrote my book, I'll tell you, that book was 20 years in the making because I kept rewriting it and rewriting it and rewriting it. And then when I finally got it, it literally took 2 weeks. But I, in my case, needed a mentor. And we've had Christy Barrett on the show in the past. And but if it wasn't for her and some of her guidance, and I think God prodding me along to force me to jump through some opportunities that I was afraid to jump through, I don't think I would have done it. So I was kind of a little more like you, Sebastian, where I'm like, okay, I want to get it out there now and just be done. And then kind of step back. And in my case, I wanted to go hide because I'm like, okay, all my dirty laundry, all that airing of my life is out there. And it was I wasn't ready for the criticism. In fact, what did you used to tell me, Melanie, when you edited my second book?
So in the Bible, Jesus's words are written in red. So I told her red means love. So just remember when you get back the edited version that I've given you, all the red, it just means love.
Yeah.
I'm trying to help you put out the best product you can.
Yes, I had to take that to heart because, and Mike, I don't know if you deal with this because you are very creative, and I think I'm creative, but sometimes when you're in that, the former consulting Booz Allen environment, or then the military where it's bottom line up front and, just the facts, ma'am, sometimes it beats the creativity out of you. I'm like, when I try to write and add some color and some, emotion to it, it's like, I really have to sit and think about it now because I was told I couldn't do that in the past. So I'm struggling a little bit trying to not be so academic in my writing or military government. I don't know.
Yeah, and you have to, and even I've been writing all my life, really. I was always good in English, and it just went to a different level when I got into journalism. But you have to realize that what you're really doing is you're having a conversation with whoever's going to read it. And one of the feedback things that helped me later in my writing career is to try to get someone to read what I'm writing that would never read it. It's not my audience. So when I'm writing this coaching sports book, some of the people who read it hate sports, don't know anything about sports. And they bring a different kind of focus on it. But this is your conversation with whoever picks it up, and you can't control that. And so you have the control of saying what you want to say. And even if it's not effective, I think what's important is, do your words get out in the way you intended them to? And that's the key thing. And so sometimes it's risky to do humor. Sometimes it's risky to give too much emotion. I know the book I wrote about my daughter, the difficulty was, what can I share? What will I share? What's too painful to share?
Right.
But it's a conversation. And then, sometimes you get somebody to come back and say, I appreciated those words because I thought that, but I couldn't verbalize that. And that one thing makes every piece of writing worth it.
Absolutely.
Right.
So what advice would either of you give to other military members or veterans who want to write a book? How should they go about it? And either one of you can pop on and say what you want. Or do you want me to call on somebody? Sebastian, what advice would you give?
I'll go. There's a movie called Finding Forrester. And it's about a young man who's a really good basketball player, but he's a better writer. And he's not getting what he needs to improve his writing. And he meets Sean Connery, who only wrote one novel and then got fed up with it. And in part of the movie, Sean says, just write. Sit down, take your typewriter, and just write. And that would be my recommendation. In my last 2 years in the Air Force, I wrote a leadership and management manuscript. And it took me 2 years, and nothing happened with it. And then I published it as a book in another form in 2017. Just as I looked at things. But the key thing is, if I get an idea, I have to write it down right there. Like if I'm in bed at 2 a.m. and I get an idea, I got to get up, I got to get it in the computer, I got to write it down. And then a lot of times, I shouldn't say a lot of times, very seldom, it looks like crap, but I don't get rid of it. I keep it. A lot of times it looks like crap. I keep it. And then when I'm writing and I'm trying to get to the end, like what Sebastian was talking about, I can bring that in when I can't get my words out. And then I say, 3 years ago, I wrote something like this. And then I go foraging through. I've come up with a system of finding those notes, and I pull it in. So I would say, just start writing. And if you're having trouble writing, or you don't type well, or you don't like to write it on paper, get a handheld recorder. When you have an idea, get it in there. And there's lots of transcription programs. The main thing is to get your words down and then do the editing later.
I absolutely agree with that advice, because although I met my husband at Dinfos, he wasn't going for journalism and broadcasting like I was. He actually was going for photography. It was like a fallback. He didn't actually want to do photography, but he actually took another guy's spot in contract, and part of that was going to photography school, and that's where we met. So he didn't do the writing side, and now when he's going to school, he's taking courses right now, and the writing portion it does not come naturally to him at all. And so I basically give him the same advice. I'm like, it doesn't have to be pretty. Just get it out on paper. It doesn't have to flow. And then I read what he's trying to say, and it might be half of the point here and half of it down here and a bunch of stuff in between. And I will help him rearrange it and make it one cohesive thought, because that's my strength. And I think, Sebastian, that's kind of what you were alluding to also, where you just had to like get it out, and then you had friends go through and kind of polish it for you. Would you agree with that?
I do agree with that. Yes.
So go ahead. Sorry.
Oh yeah. So I did have a couple things. Number one, if you are a Navy SEAL, don't write a book about how cool you are. You're not as cool as you think.
We have enough of those, right?
Number two, if you are a part of the special operations community or anything, don't get out of a cool unit and then write books about the tactics you guys use in details, because other guys are still using that, and you're going to put their life in danger. Yes, you
Loose
might
lips sink ships.
Yeah, that's very, very true. So do not do that. And then number three, just like you were saying, is like how I approached it was start with the end first. This is my goal. And then just get out on paper, or like Doc Brown gave a good piece of advice of just getting a recorder and just however you can get it out. And then like you said, Dr. Janine, is to have a mentor as well. That really helps. Having my friends, having my sisters look through it and give me advice helped me out a lot.
Well, I'll be happy to edit your second book, Sebastian.
Yeah, I will do a plug for Melanie. She is phenomenal. Of course, I get her first. I don't want anyone taking her when I need her. But no, she's amazing. She has a gift with words and can take, sometimes I take the long route to get to what I'm trying to say. And she says, just say it like this, and she does it in such a creative way. You actually feel her writing, So she is absolutely, as my editor, made me a better writer because of that. And So yeah, plug for Melanie, who does editing on the side. I don't know what her rates are for everybody else, but and I get her first. That's the only condition. So, all
Good
right.
to know.
Let's see. So we answered. Yep. So we got all the what advice to give. Well, good. Thank you, gentlemen, so much for coming on the show. I agree with what everybody stated. You know, if you're going to write a book, the best thing you can do, and what my mentor told me, who I take to heart because she's written 120 books at this point.
And do you know that one of her series is currently being shot for a movie? She actually just texted me some photos from the set. They're shooting. They're making some of her books into movies right now. She's awesome.
But the two things she told me, one was write and just get it out. Don't edit it. Don't go back. Because I tend to be a perfectionist. I want to keep fixing. You'll never get done if you do that. Just get it out. And then you have something to work with. Then you can go back and chop and edit and revise. The other thing she said, actually, before I even started writing, is she said, what authors do you like? You know, look for books from authors that you actually like to read, and then use them as a guide. Don't plagiarize. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying use them as a guide to write your books. You know, if you like, for instance, my mentor writes a lot of, she does mystery books, you know, mystery suspense. Well, in that genre, she said, if something doesn't happen in the very first chapter, you know, someone dies, something happens in the very first chapter, she will get so many bad reviews, because in mystery suspense, you have to have the incident, and then the rest of the book is finding out who did it, what happened, whatever, you know.
Right. You have to know what standards are set in each particular genre.
Yes. So finding an author you like, you know, the genre, you know, you start to learn the rules of what you're supposed to be doing and that kind of stuff. So those were the two big things that took me over the hump from not writing the book. And, you know, I got as far as 8 chapters one time, you know, and then I quit. And then it was 10 years again, that book sat, you know. So once you start putting those puzzle pieces together, you can write it actually rather quickly, as long as you're not going back, you know, editing up front. You know, if you get it out on paper, then you have something to work with. Anyway.
Yeah, 7 months for your first book, Sebastian. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is awesome. And I love Doc Brown's, you know, we think a lot alike. So having that file cabinet, if you will, whatever it really is, that document repository where you dig back, you know, because I'm constantly doing that, you know, like, dang, I know I wrote a whole chapter about this topic. Let me use it for this book. You know, I do that all the time. I love that. That's a great point.
Hey, if it's okay, if I could digress for just a minute, I wanted to go back to something Sebastian said earlier. And I love it, because he said, I don't like to talk about myself, you know, and those kinds of things. But I'm an Air Force Chief Master Sergeant E9. And so I've been studying and writing about and talking about leadership in a long time. And one lesson that I learned in coaching, really, primarily football coaching, is you never know who's listening. So many times we would have a team, and I'm not the head coach, because you have to work in the school, which I'm not doing. You have to work in the school to be a head coach of a high school team normally. So I'm an assistant coach, and things are going on, and invariably, once every few years, a kid comes to you and says, Coach, can you help me out? And I never knew that kid even cared what I had to say. But he or she, because I've coached men and women, girls and boys, was focusing on me. And I recently wrote a blog thing that says they're always watching. So even though you may not think about talking about yourself, you don't know who you're reaching. And that one person you reach because you said something, or you did a podcast like this, could make the difference for that person. And then, you know, later in their life, they say, hey, remember May 6th, I heard you. And so I went in the Army because I heard you speaking. So I hope you can think about that even if you only say 2 words, the person who hears those two words, it might make all the difference for them.
Well, I'm glad you said podcast, because Sebastian actually has a podcast as well, right, Sebastian?
Yes. Yes,
So
the Pre-Combat Check, you can go on Apple Podcasts as well as Google Play and just look it up. It's also on my website, precombatcheck.com. And I just have 10 episodes.
You had 10 episodes, yep.
Yeah, and Mel is actually one of the guests when she talks about military spouses, and that's something that I don't think gets covered very much, of what it's like to be back home when your husband or it's your wife that's going out all the time overseas. It's a difficult life. So, yeah.
That was a fun episode.
So the million people listening in now know about your podcast.
The million people, yes.
Awesome.
Yes. Well, I will tell you, Sebastian, you said you didn't like to do the marketing piece.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you'll have to tune in on the 20th. I have Dave Chesson coming on. He is the owner of Kindlepreneur. He is a former Navy. He did not retire from the Navy. I think he was a nuke engineer, if I recall correctly. Yeah, nuclear engineer on submarines, and then at some point was a military diplomat in South Korea and other places or whatnot. But he had the same thing. He had already started his family. His kids were very young, and he's like, I have to do something different. So he wrote a book on deployment. So kind of like you, Doc Brown, when you said you wrote the leadership book. And he created this book, and then he put it out there, and he didn't really do much with it because he didn't really like promoting or whatever. Well, anyway, he spent a lot of time getting up at 4 in the morning, 4:30 in the morning and whatnot, finding out how you can reach the algorithms, the search engine optimization, all this stuff. Anyway, he created $1 billion business called Kindlepreneur. And now he has a course and all this other stuff that tells people, who don't like to market, myself included. I just want to write. I don't want to do all the other stuff, but I know I kind of have to. How to do it without actually doing it. For instance, remember when you went on to Amazon, you guys, and you had to put the book categories? Well, when you put the book categories, when you first publish, you only get 2. But after you publish the book, Amazon will allow you to put 10 plus. But a lot of people don't know that because they don't go back or they don't know the information. So he's going to come on and talk about some of that stuff. He also has a tool called Publisher Rocket that is amazing. It tells you what some of those other authors that you like, what they're doing, how much they're making, what their categories are, how they're marketing. So it kind of helps you. So I wanted to throw that out there. You might want to check that show out, as well as our military authors or wannabe authors. It's a great tool. And again, Dave Chesson's also former Navy, so he'll be on the 20th. Anyway, just wanted to throw that out there.
Nice plug. Well, thank you so much, guys, for coming and offering your expertise and taking time out of your morning to share with us your stories. And I know Janine and I and our viewers really appreciate all that you've done, not only for your country, but also, trying to help others through your writing. So we really appreciate all your hard work.
Yes. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for having us on. Good to meet everybody. Have a great day. Stay safe.
Thanks. You too.
Yes. All right, Mel, it's just you and I. So let's see here. So I already did a plug for Dave Chesson on the 20th. Next week, we have Diana Goodsky coming on. She is a retired Master Chief, I believe. She'll have to correct me if I'm wrong on that. But also Navy side. And she wrote a book called Warrior Spirit Rising, and she's going to tell us all about that. So I'm really looking forward to that. You got anything else, Mel, before I take you off screen and bring up our fancy ending?
I don't think so. That was fun.
Right.
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for being my podcast partner.
Anytime.
All right, friends. Thanks again for coming on. I look forward to seeing you next week. If you have any questions or a topic you want to share with us, put it in the comment box and we'll be happy to explore, having a podcast on that topic. And if you're just watching the show now, if you missed, if you're coming in at the end, I encourage you to watch the replay. You don't want to miss what our two military authors have shared. I think it's a very valuable information. And with that, I guess I will close out and say until next week. See you then.